LinkedIn is literally a goldmine. The key is to have an interesting standpoint on it. That doesn't mean be dramatic. That just means be slightly different. Think outside the box.
Every single post should do one or more of these three things, and that's inspire, educate, or entertain.
We're going to give you as many tips as we possibly can.
It is the quickest way to you exploding on this platform.
We're going to talk about how people can get clients on LinkedIn, why LinkedIn is a massive platform, particularly for lawyers.
We've got really key resources, and the really key thing is we're building a community. So there's going to be a community hub.
100% authenticity is the key to growth.
I am coming from a place of authenticity when I write about that.
What else can people do to get clients on LinkedIn?
Say your post out loud.
What's your first tip?
Work out what are the key areas that you want as part of your personal brand.
We are so excited to help you unlock LinkedIn's potential with our LinkedIn Starter Pack for lawyers. Across 11 chapters, we'll walk you through creating a profile that stands out, crafting content that connects, and building a network that works for you. It's designed to help you take your career or business to the next level. It's completely interactive, so it's not like reading a dull book on marketing. Go to the link in the description of this episode for more information. Today, we're going to be giving some tips that we don't normally give to people. We spend every day on LinkedIn experimenting, testing, chatting, literally tweaking things. I feel like we're obsessed with LinkedIn, aren't we? We're like LinkedIn scientists at this point.
I thought you were going to say LinkedIn psychopaths. I don't know why.
What? My mind didn't go there.
Sorry. Yeah, no, we are. We analyze. I actually heard a really good description of kind of what we do actually by James Smith, PT. He's like if you don't know him, some really big PT, massive influencer. He was talking about himself here, but he was saying, I'm not into the stock market. I don't, analyze the stocks going up and down or whatever and how the markets are doing. But he said basically on social media, that is what he does. And I think to be successful, really successful on social media, you almost do have to become that kind of market analyst, but for the different platforms, don't you? And I think for better or for worse, that's definitely us for LinkedIn.
We're going to go through a lot of things, including we're going to talk about how people can get clients on LinkedIn, why LinkedIn is a massive platform, particularly for lawyers, and why also it's a perfect time to tap into LinkedIn now as a lawyer. There's not loads of competition. It's a brilliant, brilliant point, I think, anyway. And we're also going to go through a load of other different tips like what content to write about, how to engage, who to engage with. There's so much value we're going to be giving. It's just going to be wild. Helen, why do you think it is vital for lawyers to be using LinkedIn?
Well, first of all, I think it's obviously wider than just lawyers, but let's talk about lawyers to begin with. So I remember what it was like being an associate, doing my work. I was technically good, no problem at all there. Then as I got more senior, there's suddenly this pressure to win clients. Well, you have only got so many hours in the day, right? You're having to reach your 6, 7, 8 hour billable targets, or you're doing far more than that, along with all the BD and I suppose this is the BD, isn't it? But along with all the admin and the other bits and pieces, the commute, your personal life, how do you actually find the time and the network to be able to build these clients? And I think one of the really powerful things about LinkedIn is that you can do this from wherever you are, and you can do this all the time, and you can do it in a way that magnetizes clients to you. I think it's really hard to take those really early steps, and this is really the way that you can work out who are your ideal clients, who do you want in your 24/7 networking room, how can you build your brand and your profile so that these people are drawn to you, they want to work with you, they like you, they're seeing you every day, whether it's in the comments or on the platform. This is so much more powerful than any other method. Now, I'm not saying existing relationships don't have a power. Of course they do. That's a massive way that law firms will make money and win clients. But at the same time, we need to be thinking about this from the perspective of, if you're an associate, if you're a senior associate, if you're a partner, how do you win new business and what's an easy way to do it? I speak to a lot of partners even who say to me, I'm flying all over the world trying to schmooze clients or going to conferences. And a lot of the time, maybe they have small families, they have other commitments, and actually it's a huge drain on that. So I think this is really the way forward for lawyers. Aside from that, I just really want to highlight as well, this is a really big thing for anyone trying to sell into law, whether you're a coach. I'm a coach, whether you're selling all sorts of different services into the industry, whether you want to leave law, it doesn't matter. It's about finding your ideal clients, building your brand so that people are literally magnetized to you.
I think another point to mention is the fact that people are so desperate to get in the room with the right people. Well, LinkedIn is the right room with the right people. You just got to find them. Like you saying, Helen, to me off this call, LinkedIn is literally a gold mine. You are sitting on a gold mine. If you're not utilizing LinkedIn and you don't know how, you need to start learning fast because it is an amazing platform. And we have both built a massive client base based on solely LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
anyway, with that said, we don't need to, we're probably preaching to the choir here because that's why everyone's here. So shall we
we
get into it?
Just to give some examples of that, though, very, very briefly, we will get onto it, I promise. But today I've been asked to speak on 2 different podcasts. I have to say no, unfortunately, now at this point to a lot of them. But people reach out to me. I've been asked to, in the last week, I've had about 5 different law firms reach out to me saying, would you help us with this? Would you talk to us about this? Would you talk about our branding? Would you give a talk? Like, if you think about it, these are my ideal clients and they're coming to me. I'm not having to go and pitch to HR teams. It doesn't matter whether you're a lawyer or something else. This is the potential reality. So sorry, Holly, I will let you talk now.
We're going to talk about a load of different things, including what to put as your profile as a lawyer, particularly. But this is obviously applies to people who are not lawyers as well, who are here. I actually think it's going to be valuable to start off with telling how we grew on LinkedIn, just briefly, just so people know, because people who don't necessarily know us, then they're probably thinking like, who are you to tell us? Where's your social proof? Who are you to tell us what to do on LinkedIn? Do you want to start off, Helen? How did you start on LinkedIn?
I love
What's
that.
so
Who are
funny?
you? Just your usual sassy way, Holly, where you're like, who are you to tell us? Well, it's true, it's true. So my story was that, look, I was a lawyer, I was a law firm partner ultimately, and then I decided I wanted to completely reinvent my life, really. And without going into my whole story here, I basically quit my job and decided I was a coach. I did retrain. But the point there was I left law without, a solid business. I took a massive income drop. I mean, like massive. I basically didn't have a full business at all at that point, just a couple of clients. And then I was trying to work out, well, how do I build this business? How do I make it successful? How do I make people come to me? How do I find the right clients? And I'd say for probably, about a year and a quarter, I did it the traditional routes. I reached out to people. I sort of was building up a LinkedIn, but I hadn't worked out how to make LinkedIn really work for me. I think by the end of that sort of period, that first 15 months, I had about 3,000 connections/followers. And then one day I decided to actually start really speaking with my own voice on the platform. I can remember the day. I literally had to hide under a table after I posted that post. But that was when everything changed. It completely exploded. And after that, I suddenly started realizing what I needed to do to be really successful on the platform. Since then, I became obsessed with it. And over about 15 months, I've grown my following by about another 25,000 followers. And now I really have cracked it. I've now got clients who I help do the same thing. I've been working with Angela Stevens, who's a general counsel. She had 800 followers back in June. She hardly used the platform. Each one of her posts was getting just a handful of likes, say less than 10. Since then, she's now had over 4 million views on her posts. Her most viral post had about 2 million last time I checked. She's had 17 viral posts total, I think. And now she's got nearly 7,000 followers. This is 90 days later. So I know now that what I do completely works. And, I've had other clients where they've had, we've had clients, where they've had top voice badges within 48 hours. So we have cracked it, I think. Holly, let's hear your story.
So I quit law and I started doing, basically, in a nutshell, marketing for lawyers. So I wanted to tap into the legal market, and I thought, I want people to be coming to me. I want to be attracting my ideal clients. I don't want to have to go to them. cold and them not know who I am. So I thought I'm going to start using LinkedIn. So what did I do? I started posting about legal articles, the legal news. I went on to, all sorts of different platforms and tried to find out about the latest legal updates. I was posting about them on LinkedIn and nobody cared. They couldn't care less. It's the most boring thing ever.
But how many lawyers do that?
Well, no, unless you do it in a very clever way, which we'll talk about later. But if you write it in a very clever way with your perspective, your standpoint, but just copying an article from the BBC is not going to cut it, unfortunately. I was doing that basically, and then I just was like, I don't know how to gain traction, get engagement. What do I write about? So then I was writing about legal marketing stuff. I was writing about how law firms could market their companies. Again, nobody cared because, again, who cares? So
It's so true.
so I was like, what are they going to care about? Basically, I started writing about me, my story, my journey going from law to becoming a digital nomad. And people started to be interested and started to resonate and started to really be attracted to me telling my story. So as I built up my profile and started writing more stories, I gained more traction. So then I started to write about legal podcasting and other areas that I wanted to gain authority in because I'd already gained that following, that community. So then when I started to post about the things that I was working in, then people were interested at that point. But they would not have been interested at the beginning because it's like, who are you to tell me this information? I don't know who you are. I don't know your story. I'm not bought into you as a person. So therefore, whatever you tell me is not relevant. It's when people start buying into you as a person is when you start getting the engagement and the traction. So anyway, Helen, I think we should actually start giving people some tips here.
Just one point there, though, and what you were saying is I do appreciate in law you have got clearly your subject matter experts and you've got partners who just will have that innate sort of credibility. However, also if you look at their LinkedIn, they're not getting a lot of engagement a lot of the time, and it's because, as we'll get onto, they're writing in the wrong way. They're not actually engaging their audience. It's not. It needs to be in a captivating way. And as Gabriel just said in the comments, you can post a legal update, but it needs a story or an angle, which is completely correct.
Completely, yeah. Good one, Gabriel. If anyone's got any questions, just let us know. We're going to cover questions, but we're going to give you as many tips as we possibly can. And we're going to talk about how to actually attract clients in law as well, which is the main reason why probably most of you are here. So, in
Yeah.
terms of profile, then, what are we looking at for a legal profile? What do people need to do? And as many people say on LinkedIn, your profile needs to be your landing page. So when someone goes onto your profile, they need to be wowed and they need to know exactly in the first few seconds what it is that you're offering and what it is that you want that person to do. Helen, what's your first tip?
Well, I think this is where also this is where it potentially can get more complex. But to keep it simple, it depends what your aims on LinkedIn are. So first of all, it could be, if I'm thinking of Angela when I was working with her banner actually in the background. That's the first thing people will see, by the way, when they land on your profile, is a really cool picture of her. And I think she's on these stairs. It might have been at her PhD graduation or something like that. That is a great picture, and it looks cool, and it probably looks quite enticing when people see it. People are buying into that brand in the sense of thinking, oh, she's really interesting, and she's got a great history, and she's got a great education, she has a really interesting job, she's writing interesting posts. I like that. But it depends what your aims are, because actually if you're a law firm partner and you're trying to win business, you need your banner to be telling your ideal client, as Holly just said, exactly what you want them to do. So is it book a call with you? First of all, that's your call to action. But on the banner, you also need to be telling them what it is that you do and you offer, as Holly said. So in one line, in a few simple words, tell people what it is that you're offering them. Don't just have your firm's logo on there, because this is a mistake that a lot of people make. They think, oh, it makes me look like, no, don't do it. Probably most
No,
people on this call will have their firm logo on it. It's not helpful, because if we're thinking this is a landing page, when you land, your client has to think, say you're a family lawyer, it's, I help people in the Southeast with divorces. Okay, that could be much better written.
much
But then
better.
if I land on that profile, I know if I'm going through a divorce, that's the person for me. And then it says book a call. Or if you sell a course, which I don't know if lawyers would sell a course, it could be something like buy my course, whatever. But the point is you need to be telling the person who's landing on your page exactly what you want them to do. And then this also needs to be mirrored under the headline, because you've got your headline, which is underneath your photo, and then it has the option now for a link where you could put, again, you can write book a call and then link it to your Calendly or something else. I know a lot of lawyers sort of go through their secretaries and say, oh, yes, I'll put you in touch with Anne and she'll arrange the call. Think about how easy you want it to be for people to contact you. Do you want a form for them to fill in? Do you want your Calendly? Maybe that's not possible with your firm, but I think really think about these things, because if you're making it difficult for people to get in touch with you and you're trying to win clients, or you're trying to attract the right people, actually you might be creating more hurdles than you realize. Holly, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about the headline as well.
Yeah, I want to first clarify that the banner, for people who might not know, is the top thing, the long thing at the top. You can create like a graphic on Canva, free software that can include your picture or your call to action. So what you want people to do, you can do that. That's at the top. And then the link that Helen's talking about, I had difficulties with this one. I was a bit confused as to where it was initially. So just click on the pencil on your profile, and there's a section which says you can add like a link to wherever, whether it's a Calendly or whether it's your website or whatever. If you're confused about that, just ask us. That's what Helen's talking about. In terms of the title, a lot of people I see add titles where it's like, I'm a solicitor. And it's like, brilliant. We need more info. And you know what? Why don't you think about standing out a little bit? Everyone's a solicitor, not everyone, but all solicitors are solicitors. So let's stand out a little bit, and like, if, like Helen was saying, if you're a divorce lawyer, why don't you put in your title, I help people, well, women or men or whoever you want to attract, get no with high net worth divorces, for example.
Mm.
It says it in the title, and like Helen says, make sure you're putting everything throughout. So the banner needs to say the same thing as what you say, that what you're wanting people to do in the link, in your profile. Your title needs to be saying the same thing that's in your banner. Make sure everything's aligned. Imagine a landing page, a website. What are people going to be looking for? What do you want them to do? Direct them, make it super easy for them. Don't make it confusing or complex, or be like, I'm a solicitor. Brilliant. That's not going to help anyone, because what type of solicitor are you? So I think that's just a few tips that people can do with their profile. If you've got any questions about profiles, let us know.
And I think that a couple of key points there is always talking throughout your whole profile page to your ideal client or the ideal person landing there. So it's, how do you help them? Tell them. At the moment, on my headline, for example, it says, I teach you to grow on LinkedIn. I tell people straight away what I do. Then it says I'm an ex law firm partner. Then it says I'm an ex Magic Circle lawyer, because that's all the credibility behind it. But I tell people what I do. It does what it says on the tin, if you like. The other thing is, I appreciate a lot of lawyers won't have the time or the inclination towards software such as Canva. There's a really good website called Fiverr with two R's. I think it's fiverr.com, and you can pay someone like £5 to create a good banner for you. The point is, you may or may not be wanting to actually attracting clients at this point, but you need to be thinking about how you convert this into a landing page. And I think that leads us on to thinking about, the about section of the profile as well, which is talk directly to your ideal client or ideal person. Don't talk about yourself in the third person, and don't make it stuffy. Don't talk about lots of details of complex cases. Make it personal, because people buy from people. You need to come across as human.
Yeah, 100%. We've got a question here which is quite interesting. The link, in the profile section, do you advise linking the firm landing page or a personal brand landing page? I would say it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to get more clients for your firm because that's what you want to do, you're a partner or whatever, then do that. If you're wanting to build a personal brand apart from your firm and, I don't know, sell courses or a book or whatever, then do that. It depends what your goal is, right? Would you say that, Helen?
I think the main thing to think about, this is without going into too much detail in marketing here, when you've got somebody who say, who's potentially interested in your services, so it could be sort of a lukewarm lead at this point, you need to tell people what to do. As soon as they get on your firm website, everyone has short attention spans, they'll probably get lost and end up on Instagram on their phone. If you want people to book a call with you, you need that link to go to Calendly, get them to book that call while they're hot. So you need to always be in the minds of the people at the receiving end, the end user, the ideal client. What do you want them to do? If you make anything complicated, send them to other web pages, do different things, you've probably lost them. So it's about staying really focused and always putting yourself in their shoes.
Definitely. Okay, I just want to show this funny comment from Simon. He's put, my banner's a bit too much like one of those naff inspirational posters you get in the wall of an office.
I
Make sure
love
you put
it.
in your whatever your call to action is, whatever you want people to do, just tell them, As Helen says, people don't have time to be guessing what you want them to do. Tell them
Yeah.
straight.
Yeah, a bit more insight. One thing we hadn't mentioned on that, by the way, is also at the bottom of the profile, you've got your recommendations section. Get recommendations from your clients, from people you give talks to, your colleagues, even get people to talk about you, because that social proof is a really big thing. People are going to be impressed if people are talking about you. So that's one big thing there. Right. So what to write about is what I've got written down here, Holly.
Okay, what to write about. So, as a lawyer, you've got to think, what are your topics that you want to be writing about? Now, I would say from experience, from both of our experiences, you don't want to be posting links to legal articles. If you're a IP lawyer and you see trends in the news, no probs, use them, use the trends, but write about it in a story format. Maybe you've got a case study that links to that legal update. Maybe you have a specific perspective on that specific update, that legal update or that case. Talk in a really interesting way that's really going to engage people. Don't just state facts, put opinions and facts. I know a lot of lawyers are a little bit cautious about putting their opinions and they like to sit on the fence. I don't know if you have anything to say about this, Helen, but I think that if you want to stand out, putting a little bit of your perspective on things doesn't need to be controversial.
Mm.
It really adds to a post in it and it really helps people engage.
I think, look, beige doesn't work. You can't be beige, right? So there's a big difference here. I think if we're thinking about storytelling in general, you've got different things you're going to talk about. For me, for example, I might talk about some things to do with my personal life. I might talk about the fact I'm a digital nomad, that currently I'm living in Bali, that I'm moving back to Europe. Sometimes I'll talk about the legal sector, and it's, you're laughing at me, Holly. To mention Bali
Yeah.
again. And so I'll talk about the legal sector. I'll talk about its toxicity and its culture, because those are things that matter to me. They go to my core values. I'll also talk about things that matter to my clients, like getting ahead in their careers, winning on LinkedIn, all that kind of thing. I know what I talk about, but I have to talk about it in a way that is interesting, where I'm telling stories, where I'm getting my personality across. Anyone,
Hmm.
as you said, Holly, can go to the BBC and just read a sort of report on something. So actually,
Yeah.
whatever I'm talking about, I just need to make it interesting. And that's what I mean by don't be beige. You don't need to talk about private stuff. So I'm not going to tell you guys what happened at my last doctor's appointment. So don't ask me. I know what you're all thinking. No, I'm joking. It makes it sound really weird now. But you know what I mean? It's like we have certain things that are private. Part of, defining your brand on LinkedIn is a deeper topic, but is really thinking about what you do, what you don't want to talk about, what you want to be known for. So when you have that clarity about yourself and what you stand for, what you're bringing to the platform, who you're trying to attract, then you can write in a way which is interesting. So for example, if I'm talking about, I don't know, something that's happened in the industry, and maybe I think this affects law firm culture, I could just start with a post saying, firm culture, it's really difficult to sort of find, people find it really difficult to get work-life balance, and to, everybody kind of wants flexible working, but how do we manage this? Straight away, I'm completely bored. It's just what everyone else is saying. You need to come
Yeah.
in there with some sort of statement, something or other, in just a few words, which grabs people's attention,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
say, I never want to work in an office full time again. Now, okay, I get it as a lawyer. You may not be able to say that depending on what your firm is saying, but you will be able to say a lot. But you need to say something that's vaguely interesting.
That's it. The key is to have an interesting standpoint on it. That doesn't mean be dramatic.
Mm,
That just means be slightly different. Think outside the box. That's
yeah,
all. I think also what really works is, and a lot of people are getting nervous about this, but talking about their stories. I don't mean to say you need to, like Helen says, talk about private things, but you can talk about the time you graduated and how
yeah,
that felt and your emotions, you know? You can talk about how you, instead of saying, I'm delighted to announce that I have a new job at Bird and Bird, for example. You don't, instead of saying that, why don't you talk about it in a story and talk about your experience and what you've done in the past and how moving forward will help your, I don't know, career. And also the one thing that you really need to remember when you're writing your post is people are not interested in you, they're interested in them. So
yeah.
you always need to bring it back to the audience. So if you're talking about a personal story, you need to talk about the lesson you learned and how it relates to the other people who are reading your post. So let's say you've got a promotion and you're like, I've got a promotion. This happened. It took me years to get this. I put in so much effort. This is what I did. Number one, I built up a network. Number two, I da 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 da. And the tips that you did to get to that promotion. And then at the bottom, be like, this is how you can do it. You know, that's just an example, a very, very vague example as to how you tie it back to the audience.
Absolutely. And try not to talk in terms of we. As always, we like to say we all the time, like we can think of this topic and blah, blah, blah. No one gives, I can't say it because it's LinkedIn, it'll probably ban me, but no one gives, I can't even think what to
Two
say now.
hoots.
No, thank you. Two hoots. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate that. Two hoots about we. It's always about you. If you look at, okay, you'll probably all be pointing out my post. I use the word we now tomorrow or something, but generally it's always you. You need to talk straight to the reader. Imagine that you've got somebody right in front of you and you are talking to them. Oh, and by the way, write how you talk. So there are probably lawyers who look at my posts and think, oh my gosh, the grammar,
She's
that's
so posh.
terrible. So much. I'm not this debate again. But I'll start sentences with like and but, and I'll split sentences. This is a whole thing in itself on formatting, which is really, really important too, actually. But the reason I do that is because I write as I talk. So I would look you in the eye and say it exactly the same way. So one tip I always give to clients as well, actually, at the beginning stages as well, is say your post out loud. If your post sounds weird or you're stumbling over words or it's difficult to read or the sentences are too long, your reader will have switched off. Is it how you
Totally.
talk?
Definitely. They probably read your post, Helen, and think, gosh, she's so inarticulate.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably. But then they still like it. So it's all right.
yeah, yeah, still. I like this question. It relates to this. Peter says, would you agree that it's more important to be authentic as opposed to just value signaling trending topics? 100% authenticity is the key to growth, I would say. Would you say that, Helen?
So, yeah, I saw this question. I love this question. So, when we're saying use trending topics, right? So, if this goes to a place of authenticity, I'm only going to post and comment. I kind of think of my LinkedIn sometimes as a bit like a newspaper opinion column when I get a bit leery about certain topics. I am coming from a place of authenticity when I write about that. So that's my truth. That opinion is mine. I care about that topic, hence I've chosen to speak about it. If I didn't care about that topic, or I I can't even think why I would give an opinion that isn't my own. That would be inauthentic. It's almost like you can't have the
Yeah.
two. Like, don't be doing something just because you think it's a good idea. Do it because it matters to you. This comes back to your personal brand, and this is something we were going to work on in the academy, which is understanding what are your core values, what are the things you stand for, what do you want to be known for? Because if you are in line with all of those things, you will not write inauthentic content. The most important thing on social media these days I include LinkedIn in that. It is social media, is authenticity.
100%. People can see straight through it if you're not authentic, and they can tell when you don't care about something and you're just doing
Yeah,
it for the sake of it being a trending topic.
yeah.
So I would definitely agree with that one. I'll give you an example of a hook that I've used before. I quit law for flexibility. Immediately that makes people think, oh, how did you do that? Why did you do that? I want to do that. You're triggering emotions, you're triggering intrigue, you're triggering inspiration, you're triggering certain emotions. And so that makes people want to read on. So once you grab their attention in the first line, you need to hook them again in the second line. This means again making them want to read on. So the second line could be something that completely contradicts the first line to make people confused and be like, what on earth is she talking about? I need to read this post to understand what she's on about. Or it could be something that reconfirms the first line.
It's that intrigue, isn't it? Where people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, so you quit law for flexibility. I want more flexibility, or I wish I could have more flexibility. I wish I could do that. Oh my gosh, I like need to know that one thing now. I must read on. Or just to give
Yeah.
another example of that, this is a post I did this week, I can just think of, which said, you know, my client went from 800 to 6,000 followers in 90 days, and then underneath it had 4 million views, something else, you know. So it's something where people go, oh my gosh, they keep getting hit by shock, you know. That's what I'm doing to you all the time, just shocking you. But that it's really key that you think about this, because actually everybody's scrolling all the time. They're only going to stop for something which is really interesting. So ideally you want your first line to be 9 words or less. Not always possible, but it's a lot more possible than you think. And the rehook, the second line, ideally is also short. It's something to hook them back in. People haven't got long attention spans. You need to grab their attention in just a few words.
And then the main body of the post just needs to be, again, short, simple, to the point. Remember that the reader doesn't have much time. They want to see the point immediately and they want to know the answer very quickly. So that's what I would just say, and make it in a kind of story format. So like you're telling them a story. And it's always good, as I mentioned before, to link back to the audience. What do they want to get from this post? If you're writing a post about leaving law, which is what I write about quite a lot, my main goal is to inspire. So, how do I inspire that person at the end of the post? Maybe you'll write a nice statement, inspiring them, making them feel like they can do it. At the end, you need to have some really bold statements because this is what's going to make them engage, which is what you want. You want people to engage with your posts.
And I think that there's a really key bit here as well, that every single post should do one or more of these three things. And that's inspire, educate, or entertain. Okay. Every single post needs to do at least one of those things. If it is not doing any of those things, don't post it. Just don't do it. It's got to do one or more of those things. And I know we've had a, oh no, actually, I won't jump to that. We'll stay on the post, the writing strategy. I think, did you say end with a question? Have you finished with the call to actions,
I've
Holly?
not said that yet, but what I say is you need to end with a power statement. So something that's going to, again, shock the reader or reaffirm the hook or make them inspired, educated, or entertained. The purpose of the post needs to go in the last line. Again, inspire, educate, entertain. And then, like you say, if you want to engage people, then write a question at the end in order to get a reaction in the comments section. That's very vital.
Yeah, I had someone reach out to me the other day actually saying, I don't understand why my posts are getting no engagement. And it's normally for the reasons we've just said, which is, you know, really long sentences, straight in with a massive paragraph, you know, a lot of waffle. And at the end, there was no question. So there was that's called a call to action, by the way. It's calling the reader to action, or a CTA. So it's like, well, you're not getting any comments because you're not asking anyone anything, you know, unless we get onto copywriting a bit higher level. If you end with enough of a mic drop power statement, you might induce people to comment. But I think for these purposes, even if you put "do you agree" on the end, ask them a question. that is the quickest way that you are going to learn to write viral posts. That's what Angela said to me in particular when I was working with her. It was when she saw me working through her post and moving things around and explaining to her as I did it why I did that. She was like, I get it now. I get it. I couldn't see it before. So that is, I think that's probably one of the most powerful things we offer, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, it's going to be super super useful for people, and the fact that they're going to have access to us like pretty much all the time is just crazy, because we have that guidance, and any questions about posts or whatever, it's learn as you go. This is basically a training contract for LinkedIn.
Oh my God, we should have called it that. It is. It's like, I think the problem is, right, because LinkedIn is so misunderstood. I feel like I should break into song now, but because it's so,
Don't do that.
I'm so tempted. So it's because, guys, it's because we podcast with each other all the time. So we go off on the most weird tangents. But uh, yeah, I've completely forgotten what I was talking about now. What were we talking about?
You said it's so misunderstood.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's because it's so misunderstood. I think people, think that there's just some sort of magic bullet. You can, oh, I can learn that quickly. Or, oh, if I keep trying that, that'll work. And I think that's how we have to view it. You wouldn't expect someone to become a fully qualified solicitor just overnight. I appreciate in the US you go in as associates and it's a slightly different system. But in the UK we have, a couple of years where we do the training contract and you learn how to do it. Like there are several core modules. There are core things you have to learn to be able to do this. So we've got you covered. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I've got a question. Lawyers are cautious and risk averse. Mindset needs to shift. The biggest risk is not building a LinkedIn profile. So this is not actually a question, but I'm going to turn it into a question, because I know a lot of people ask this question. It's like, lawyers are risk averse. Okay. So how do you go about posting on LinkedIn when you're worried about certain things that you should not be saying? What do you say, Helen?
I think for me, okay, this comes back to you getting clear on your brand. Holly will tell me off for this because branding is a whole topic and said, Helen, don't get into branding. But I just want to tell you guys this. First of all, I'm giving away all my secrets here. What I say is get an A3 piece of paper, because I like to work on a big piece of paper. Get a pen. All of you can manage this, and just brainstorm all the different things about yourself, whether it's work, whether it's private life, whether it's what your expertise areas, all these different things. Just get it all down. From this, then work out what are the key areas that you want as part of your personal brand. Okay, there's a difference between you as a person in your private life and your brand. I know it might surprise you all, but I'm just not quite this polished in everyday life. But no, it's this thing about, you decide what you want to present to the public. So then when you're thinking about how do I want to present my brand to the world, then you need to think about, well, actually, how am I going to discuss these topics? What am I comfortable speaking about? What am I not comfortable speaking out about? And I think what's helpful there as well is this is where coaching comes in, where Holly and I can be very helpful, which is actually challenge you on some of that, where you say, I don't want to do that. I could never talk about that. And then it's thinking about, well, how might you talk about it? What's a way that you could position this? How can you position yourself as this kind of expert? So I think this is it's a whole process. I think lawyers, in my experience, just hold back. They don't want to say anything because they're too fearful of saying the wrong thing or landing themselves in it. But actually, if you go through this whole process carefully, you get really clear on what you talk about. And also, I think it's like building a muscle in the gym. You don't go straight into the gym and start deadlifting 150 kilos. I wouldn't be writing the post that I write now a year and a half ago. I've had to build up to this level of confidence. So what we do is we help you build that confidence, get you writing posts that you're comfortable with, get the right formatting, get the right layouts, get the right hooks. You'll start to see really positive feedbacks. You'll get really high engagement, and then you'll build up a bit more confidence. We put another 5 kilos on, another 5 kilos on, another 5 kilos on. And look, your following has grown, your confidence has grown, and you're no longer sort of hiding in the shadows anymore.
Absolutely love it, Helen. We got another question here. What should your first post be about? So, assuming that you're posting for the very first time, your first post. So, again, it's getting clear on your topic ideas. So, if you're someone, so I'll tell you what my topic ideas are, my content pillars. So, number one is digital nomad life / traveling. That's one of my pillars. Number two is lawyer well-being, or like cultures in law, working in law, that sort of thing. And number three is podcasting in law, so legal podcasts. So these are my three pillars. So if I'm starting off posting on LinkedIn for the first time, I'm going to take one of these three. And I'm going to start just trying it out, testing it. It's one big experiment. How do people engage? Do they like it? Do they not like it? Then I can amend my pillars. I can amend my topics according to what my audience likes, and just tweaking it each time. I would also suggest doing an introduction post if you're posting for the first time, to just introduce yourself on LinkedIn, and you can talk about who you are, what you like doing in your spare time, your hobbies, etc. That's a good one to go into, and then you can start going off on your content pillars after that.
Can you just talk about your recent one where you did a re-intro post? Because that's also something you can do from time to time, isn't it? A re-intro. I just remember it, I'm just thinking, don't make it boring. Don't make it just about work. Make sure you get your
Yeah,
personality in there, because you wrote, I remember your post went really viral, didn't it? Like well over a
it did.
thousand likes, I think. Or no,
Yeah,
you gained like 1,000 followers, didn't you?
yeah, from one post.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you told me, you mentioned in it that you were a big fan of the Beatles, which actually I hadn't known about you. And apparently that went a bit crazy in the comments because so many people related. So
yes.
can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I briefly in one line mentioned what I did in terms of professionally, but I spoke more about things that I don't normally speak about on LinkedIn, because I'm not going to start talking about how I love the Beatles, because that's just random. I'm not going to start talking about, bits and bobs about my life that are just not relevant to my LinkedIn posts. So I just dropped in a few little things, and I spoke about, yeah, the fact that I love the Beatles, and like that just triggered so many comments about people being like, oh, what's your favorite song? And it caused a lot of engagement. So I think introduction and posts are very, very powerful, because it's a great opportunity for you to showcase who you are, your personality. I also added in a few jokes in there. I said the fact that my like, what was it, living my best life would be going on like a 10K walk and having a cup of Yorkshire tea at the end. So then people are like, what about PG tips?
I love it. I love it. I love it. And actually, like something I'll often do, just to go to that real human element, is like I did it in today's post, which is I'll post the post, and today I used a more professional photo. I don't always, I mix them up. But in the comments, I'm like, today I'm in a Japanese tea room. Where are you all today? Or I'll be like, the other day I was like, my computer crashed 3 times. Like, can anyone resonate? It's like that thing of making it human, and you can bring that into your post, you can bring that into your commenting, like show people the real you.
Absolutely. I want to add in an interesting question here, which is something that a lot of lawyers also get a bit panicky about. How personal is too personal in your opinion? So posting a picture of completing a marathon, no, that's not, I wouldn't say that's too personal, would you? I think a lot of people are saying that, LinkedIn was traditionally a business platform. It is a business platform. It is a platform to gain business, but
Mhm.
people are resonating with authenticity. So how do you balance the two? Well, you need to think about what your target is. Why are you on LinkedIn? Are you attracting I don't know, high ticket people? Are you someone who's trying to attract, for example, partners of law firms, or are you a partner in a law firm trying to attract crazy big businesses? If so, would that business want to know about you running a marathon? Yes or no? You could definitely do it in a way. See, if I was talking about running a marathon, I would do it in a very specific way, which would not be like, oh, by the way, on Saturday I ran a marathon. That's it. I'd be writing it like, I spent 1 year training for this marathon. It took time. I had to wake up early. It took a lot of training. I was running every single day, bit by bit. It was a compounding effect over time. Tell a story. Then what's the lesson? The lesson is you can't run a marathon in one day suddenly. It takes time and effort each day to build up your skills to run that marathon after, I don't know, 1 year of training, for example. That's the lesson. Okay, that's going to be a lot more engaging and inspirational to your ideal client than just saying, I ran a marathon. So try and turn it into a way that you want to use it. Do you want to use it to make, to inspire, educate, or entertain? And is this going to attract your ideal client? That's what you need to be thinking about. If so, do it.
I think just to mention on the marathon point as well, is anything like that is just very, very city. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the elevator and people are like, oh yeah, I'm just training for the London Marathon, or I'm doing this Ironman or whatever. And I think it's a really sort of high octane, high achieving profession, isn't it? So anything you're doing which shows, you know, how you had to work through adversity and how you're pushing through it or achieving on a sporting front is something you can turn into a really good story. I would definitely say running a marathon, or pictures of you completing a marathon. I mean, that's a real achievement, isn't it? It's that post could do really well if you build the story correctly around it. I would say, you know, personally, I wouldn't post a picture of me. I don't think, I can't think of the context. Although just generally, you know, if you're in hospital or first thing in the morning with no makeup, or, you know, like, just think about, as Holly says, your ideal clients. At the same time, your ideal clients are humans. So think about, right, so if I think about my brand, just to give you an example, I want to show that I've got credibility. My background shows that because I was a Magic Circle lawyer. I was also a law firm partner. However, I need people to see me as as that kind of expert, or somebody of that standing as well. So I have photos of me. I have quite a lot of professional photos where I'm in a suit. I'm like looking the part, if you know what I mean. Then I also show photos of me which are a lot more casual. I might be in Bali. I might be, it sort of shows the more human side. But at the same time, I mix it up quite deliberately because I want people to remember I'm a professional, but I also want them to know I'm human. And by the way, I'm thinking of a question we had earlier on, which is, you know, do you have to be posting photos of yourself? Think of it
Hmm.
this way. First of all, people connect with people. The more they see your face and just see you there and connect you with what you're writing, the more impact that is going to have. The deeper that connection with your brand, even if it's on a subconscious level. So they need to see your face if you're going to do well. And by the way, LinkedIn is moving more towards video as well. That's a whole new movement. So to do really well in the future, we're probably going to have to all be on video too. But the point here as well is when you're scrolling through the LinkedIn, I don't know what you call it, feed, that's it. If you only have words, you take up a small section. If you've got a photo, at some point, basically your post or the first line, the hook, possibly the rehook, the second line, and your photo are going to take up someone's whole screen on their phone. They are much more likely to stop for that, and they're much more likely to like your post, even if they don't read it, based on the photo, which boosts engagement, which pushes the post further. So to do well, I think you do need photos or images or something, but do not use stock photos. They're not relatable. They're
Hmm.
terrible. They get terrible engagement.
Love that. Love that. Right. We haven't got too much time,
What?
but I'm just going to go through one
Okay.
last question, and then I think we need to talk about like how people can be getting clients on LinkedIn. If you've got any questions, specific questions about that, then let us know. We'll also be responding to your questions afterwards. So if you've asked the question and we've not answered it, don't you worry. We'll answer it. How can we highlight the value we bring to our clients' businesses and distinguish our approach from others? Absolutely love this question. And I think it comes down to who are you targeting? Who is your ideal audience? What businesses are you approaching and what do they need from you? What are their pain points, as we say? What, Helen, can you explain what a pain point is?
So a pain point is basically the challenges someone faces. But basically this is it. When you're on LinkedIn, you're essentially what you're doing marketing, but it comes down to sales psychology, and we cover a lot of sales psychology in. You've got to stop laughing at me because I
I'm
can't
sorry.
deliver it.
I'm laughing at Gabriel. I just
No, bro. Oh my God, Gabriel, can you stop putting her off? It's true though,
stop
isn't it? No,
distracting me.
I love it. I love it.
Sorry, go
So
on,
basically,
Helen.
sales psychology in a I'm looking at Olivia now in the comments. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, guys. If we were all in a room, we'd all just be in stitches, wouldn't we? Um,
Yeah.
Sales psychology is this, right? People have problems. And as a salesperson, whatever you're selling, whether it's products or services, if it's legal services, you are providing a solution to their problem. Okay. So their problems essentially are their pain points. Let's go back to the divorce example. It's, I hate my husband or wife and I want to get divorced and I need a divorce and I don't know how. Then you turn up and you're like, well, I'm a divorce specialist and I can help you understand that. And then maybe further pain points are, well, I've got children and what does this mean for me? Will I get custody? What does it mean for the house? What does it mean for my finances? All of these are potential pain points. So I don't know why I'm talking about family law so much because I wasn't a family lawyer. But if I was a family lawyer, I'd be thinking, well, actually, if I'm talking to my ideal client, not only do I need to show that I'm a real person, that I'm 3D, they really want to get to know me, they feel comfortable, they feel safe with me. That's going to be really important for a family law kind of brand. Also, I need them to understand how expert and knowledgeable I am and how much I can give them solutions to all of their pain points. And then I become the go to person. You can do exactly the same with whatever services you're offering. It could be law, it could be something else, it can be coaching, it doesn't matter. You understand what your client's problems are, you understand how you solve your client's problems, and then you just talk all the time about their problems and how you solve those problems. You become the go to person.
I think on top of that, you also should be talking about you and showing your personality a little bit, as far
Yeah.
as you're comfortable. So, I don't always talk about podcasting services or what I'm selling. I talk about things that are interesting to me, and that will be interesting to other people. I like to share inspiring stories. If I've done something that I think might inspire other people, like, for example, traveling the world whilst working, then that's something that I add in addition, which makes a little slight twist of interest for people. And it's like, oh, I know her as a person. Again, we're going back to people, buy from people. And I know that she also provides this service. So the two go beautifully hand in hand: authenticity, individuality, personable, being personable, and solving problems. Beautiful.
And I think just to add on that bit as well, that kind of goes to what I was saying right at the beginning of this call, which is that because all the time, I'm talking to law firms and lawyers about the problems they've got and how I can solve them, whether that's about, climbing your careers, LinkedIn, personal branding, your marketing, all these kind of things. That means that then people just slide into my DMs and say, oh, we've got a talk, or could you do a lunchtime seminar on this? Or
Mm.
could you coach a couple of our partners on their LinkedIn strategy? Because they're seeing all the time that, I become the authority for that thing. You will do the same thing. I think this brings us into a much broader networking discussion, which is you don't just go out there and land a client. Not normally. That's not how it works. People have to warm up to you. They have to get to know you. And
Mhm.
social media is a brilliant way for this because in normal networking, and I do suggest you do this, this takes us into a whole different realm, but you need to keep in touch with people. You need to keep touching base with them, checking in, helping them understand that you need to be that you are a human, that you're relatable. But social media is really helpful for that because actually people feel a very similar connection to that, but you're sending out something to the masses, so you don't have to individually WhatsApp each person every day, but they're all seeing you.
Totally. So, how can lawyers get clients on LinkedIn apart from posting about and doing all the things that we've already mentioned in this and utilizing the platform, using your profile as a landing page, a website, asking people or telling people to do exactly what you want them to do? You're creating amazing posts, they're authentic, you're tapping into the pain points of your target person. What else can people do to get clients on LinkedIn? Helen, let's go to you first.
Taking all the good ideas. I mean, we've spoken a lot there about all the marketing side of it, which is basically drawing people in. You can also take a bit more of a sales approach, which is, I mean, I think one of the first strategies which we teach you in the academy is how to connect with all the right people and have them in your audience. So it's
Mm.
about thinking about who you want to be connected with, reaching out to them, whether it's LinkedIn, and you might build beyond LinkedIn and then be on their WhatsApp or their email, going for coffees, etc. But the point is, you can actually do that cold outreach as well. And then, of course, that becomes how can I put it? It then becomes not cold because they're seeing you all the time anyway, and you're warming them up. And then there's, of course, creating, you can feed them into your newsletters if you want to do that. If you have that, I realize that some people in bigger firms might not be able to just run their own newsletter, but you can do that whether or not that's on LinkedIn. That's kind of a whole topic in itself. Although I think these days, I don't want to get banned by the platform, but I think it's safer if you can to be getting your contacts off the platform rather than on it, not to become too reliant on one source from a marketing perspective. So you can always be thinking about how are you magnetizing people to you, and how are you making sure that you're reaching out to the right people as well to have them in your inner circle.
Yeah, I think to attract people, the main thing is the post in the profile, and just coming across as the real go-to person for whatever you want to be known for. And then apart from that, like you say, Helen, reaching out to people. But also a good way you can do this is by looking at, okay, who's your ideal person that you want to speak to? Who's your ideal client, or an opportunity that you want to get? It might not be clients, find those people, search for them on LinkedIn, search for the people who they are attracting, or the people who they're attracted to. So, for example, let's say your target audience, your target client is I don't know, a small business. Who would a small business follow? And then look for that person, if you see what I mean. We go into so much more detail about this on the academy, on exactly how to get leads, how to network properly. But what I would say is pinpoint people on LinkedIn who you want to connect with or who you want to know, and comment on their posts regularly,
Yeah,
or comment on people's posts that they're commenting on. So let's say your ideal client is commenting on Helen's posts. Start commenting on Helen's post, but comment on their comments. Reply to them, create conversations with them in the comments. And then if you reach out to them in the DMs, in the direct messages, the private messages, then you're a warm. You're totally
yeah,
warm. You're not a random person. They know
yeah.
you because they know you in the comments.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key thing as well to think about, which is don't just don't just connect with people because they don't know who you are. So they're much less likely to accept your connection request. What Holly suggested is like going up to someone in a networking room, having your business card in your hand and shoving it into their hand and walking off again. That's what I think of it a bit like. So if people just connect with me generally and they don't say anything, I might look at their profile. If I can see a kind of connection and think, okay, well, I can see why I would be connected to that person. I may accept, but otherwise I'll be like, well, I'm not going to accept. I literally don't know you. So when I say let's connect or connect with people, like I expect you to introduce yourself. I would normally introduce myself to people as well. It's almost imagining this kind of massive virtual networking room we've got here is a real networking room. You wouldn't sort of, I don't know, you wouldn't just stand there and read a legal case. You wouldn't just walk up to someone, shove your business card in their hand and walk off. You wouldn't, you'd start a conversation. It just but somehow on this platform these things become normal.
Such a good point. Yeah. I'm conscious of the time, and I
Yeah.
think we need to wrap it up. If you've got any more questions, you can contact us. And if you want to learn more about how to explode your LinkedIn, how to get opportunities, how to grow, how to get engagement, how to network, all the things that we have kind of touched on today, but in much further detail, get leads, everything, we're going to be sharing everything we know. It's going to be highly valuable, and you're going to be part of a community as well. You're going to have access to us. You're going to be able to ask us questions, and we're going to be able to actually critique your posts.
The other thing is, I've had a lot of, well, both of us get a lot of people reaching out to us because of your very successful podcast, Holly, and also our very successful podcast, and saying, oh, I want a podcast. So lots of people want podcasts because they think it's a cool idea. If you are one of those people, great. We're big fans of podcasts, and you can do really well. It's a brilliant way to place yourself as an expert, grow your expertise, build your brand, all those things. But you need a following. If you don't have a following, you have no listeners for your podcast. So
Yeah.
if you want to, the first step is to build your brand, whether that's on LinkedIn or other platforms. we're talking about LinkedIn here. If you grow your brand to several thousand people on LinkedIn, you can then launch your podcast and then you can explode. And then the sky becomes the limit, but you have to take
Totally.
one step at a time. But a lot of people just think, oh, I need a podcast. Well, if you've got 100 connections, then good luck to you.
Good luck indeed. We are so excited to help you unlock LinkedIn's potential with our LinkedIn Starter Pack for lawyers. Across 11 chapters, we'll walk you through creating a profile that stands out, crafting content that connects, and building a network that works for you. It's designed to help you take your career or business to the next level. It's completely interactive, so it's not like reading a dull book on marketing. Go to the link in the description of this episode for more information.